A man has been arrested by air marshals after allegedly running naked down the aisle of a Virgin flight from Perth to Melbourne.
And the Tories are cleverly calling Sakir Sleepy
They're calling
Starmer
him Sleepy
now,
Starmer
which is
because
their
he's
new
61.
attack line.
It was a special evening for Kevin Costner at the 77th Annual Cannes Film Festival. You could see the emotion on the Yellowstone star's face. See the emotion.
All right. Ladies and gents, it's Tuesday night. At time of recording, it's episode 281. My God. 281 episodes. Now, welcome to another episode of depressing, downtrodden, dead-eyed awfulness, the likes of which seeks to paradoxically cheer you up as we go through it, or them, once more. Such is the wonder of gallows humour, that if we talk about how bad the formerly United Kingdom has gotten, then we will get that that misery likes company feeling going on, won't we? Even if, as my hope is, you don't especially like my company. What's going on, people? Big shouts to the Patreons tonight. Their names across the screen right now. Look at them. Those gorgeous bastards. That's if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, what's up? How are you guys doing? What's going on? I suppose I should say, before we get stuck into it, the in-person meetup off the back of this show, off the back of the Patreon, the in-person meetup is happening on the Saturday just after the election. So that is Saturday the 6th of July in London. Big meetup. Me, my Patreon backers, my YouTube community members. There's always a link to both of those in the description below. So, if you've been enjoying podcasts, the paper reviews, and you want to get a bit more involved, join the community, come down and meet us. Saturday, the 6th of July in London is when the next one is happening. Come down, get involved. Right, what should we talk about this time on this episode? What is going on? There's loads happening, isn't there, at the moment? Much of it election campaign focused, obviously. Sunak's latest efforts, should we call them that? Efforts were what exactly? Let's touch on them very quickly. They were to bang on about national service. That was yesterday. To tell pensioners he's going to give them a tax break. So that's exciting for the oldies. Meanwhile, Starmer is going to market like, look, I'm a safe pair of hands. That's what I am. I'm a bit boring. I'm a bit beige. I'm a safe pair of hands. That's Starmer's deal. He's like, let's try and bring politics back to a place of endless, puzzling tedium. Just curiously unspecific. That's where we're headed with Starmer. But it is, to a lot of people, it's seen as a return to, okay, I'll take that over the chaos, the psychodrama. And so then in response to that, the Conservative Party have been like, oh, look at him. Look, he's so boring. He's not really up to it. He's not dynamic. He's Sleepy Starmer. That is their new attack line. Guys, he's 61, so he's obviously too old for politics. He's 61. He's Sleepy Starmer. Their new attack line, which they have obviously stolen from Donald Trump over stateside, because, he called Joe Biden Sleepy Joe, didn't he? But that's where we're at with Sunak's campaign. Their launch went awful. We don't need to go back into all of that stuff. The rain, things could only get better, getting blasted down Downing Street, Their policies are all pretty much demonstrable bollocks, right? From the MOD, 75 billion. They're going to spend money on that. The national service stuff, which they haven't thought through at all, and everyone just knows it's a pre-election gimmick designed to appeal to Daily Express readers. And then when they get called out for this stuff, when Keir Starmer's like, that sounds really desperate. When they get called out for it, the best they can do is lift ill-suited insults of literally the worst guy in the world, in Donald Trump. Because with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, like, you can kind of understand it, right? Calling him Sleepy Joe. I'm not saying it's the cleverest thing ever. I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying it kind of ish sort of works, because Joe Biden is old. He's like 82 or 84 or something, isn't he? He's old. He's doddery. He's had a couple of falls. He can be quite forgetful. But Starmer is only 61. and also, none of those other things. He's not doddery. He's not forgetful. He's actually, like, incisive. He's surgical with the detail. Every week at PMQs. Oh, yeah, that was the other thing, wasn't it? I challenge Keir Starmer to a weekly debate, and he's too scared to debate me. Even though he debates you every week on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. Anyway. So Biden is old and doddery and forgetful, and he's had a couple of falls. So Sleepy Joe, in some capacity, works. Sleepy Starmer does not. And this really sort of speaks to this idea that this election has been hurried. It's been rushed out. They're not prepared. They're just having to haphazardly throw ideas together that are not really focus group tested or, whatever. That's why they've lifted this. That's what Trump is doing. Oh, we should try that. Like, what is their next slogan going to be? It's going to be like, "Make Britain America again." Yeah, it's fine. Sign it off. Push it out. But the other thing that was stupid about this particular effort, this particular saying or slogan that they were trying to put out there, see if it caught fire, was that this is a party who are trying at the moment, today, on day of recording, to tickle the balls of pensioners, right? Like, that is their bread and butter, is luring in the grey vote with a couple of strokes and a little just lick of the tip. I could increase your pension by a little bit. We could teach those whippersnappers a lesson together, you and me. We could push them into national service. It's just what they need. It's tickling the balls of the grey vote, right? That's who they are. But now, also who they are, concurrently, is a party who are basically suggesting that 61 years old is too old to stay conscious. So we love you. We respect you here in the Conservative Party. We're all about that grey vote. We're going to look after you with the pensions, the whippersnappers, the national service. But also, if you're over 61, maybe you and Deirdre over there need a couple of tickets to the plebatoire. And then you look at the fact that they based this on the fact that Starmer took a day off, right? They're not basing it on him falling asleep in the House of Commons like Jacob Rees-Mogg. They're not basing it on footage of him nodding off like any myriad of Conservative MPs and backbenchers who have been pictured just falling asleep at the House of Commons while they're supposed to be listening to speeches and debate. They haven't got any footage like that of Keir Starmer nodding off. What have they based it on? Just that he supposedly had a day off, even though he hadn't. He hasn't had a day off of campaigning. The only one that did have a day off was Rishi Sunak. What? Who? Like, it's getting so ridiculous now, isn't it? This campaign, the rain, the things could only get better, accusations of this, ill thought through nicknames. pictures of him on the airplane, standing below an exit sign. Who is running this campaign? The entire campaign is being strategized by the Chuckle Brothers. That is an explanation only rule-outable by virtue of the fact that one of those guys is in the ground. But that is the only reason. That's... What else is going on, guys? Angela Rayner has just been cleared by Greater Manchester Police this afternoon, so that's pretty fun. For those of you who are perhaps a bit unfamiliar with her and her situation, she had a house, okay? It was an ex-council one, which, as I understand it, she purchased under the Right to Buy scheme. So ex-council, she buys it, and then she was married, or she is married, I don't know. But there was this question mark over whether she was really living there. Like, is that her official residence, or was it a second home, which then, when she sold it, she should be liable to pay capital gains tax on? So if it's her house, she doesn't have to pay it. But if she's living with her husband over here and she's renting it, which was the allegation, then she should have had to have paid capital gains tax. That was the scandal, right? Was it her real home, or was she living here? Blah, blah, blah. And the Daily Mail's Dan Hodges, and I think the other guy's name is Glenn Owen, they really went to town on this. Literally, like, for, what was it, 2 weeks? Front pages every day. Forget about all manner of tax avoidance that goes on by all of your least favourite corporations out there, and even the Daily Mail itself, which are owned by a conglomerate offshore shell company in Bermuda and pay no tax. Forget about that. For a second, it's all about whether Angela Rayner owed, I think it was, wasn't it like £3,000, possibly? She may have owed the HMRC an extra £3,000 or £4,000. I think that was the extent of the trouble that she was in. Front page coverage for weeks by Glenn Owen and Dan Hodges. Dan Hodges was writing like tweets about this every day. Still, even yesterday, it's like day 10, day 15, day 27 now, guys. And still no word from Angela Rayner. All she has to do to make all of this go away is just show us the advice she got from her accountants. Day 37, day 41. All she has to do is show us the tax advice she was given, and this all goes away. Like, it was so certain, definitive, entitled that she should have to provide this to Dan Hodges and the Daily Mail. And I should mention this, that the police had already looked into this. They'd already looked into her tax stuff and concluded that there was no case to answer. But then a Tory MP by the name of James Daly of Struggling Children Are Just the Fault of Crap Parents fame, well, he decided to re-report her to the Greater Manchester Police Force, and so then the whole thing kicked off again. And anyway, now here we are on Tuesday night, and the GMP, the Greater Manchester Police, have suggested that there is once again no case to answer. So I suppose this should be the end of Dan Hodges' career, right? You would have thought. I mean, when you look at his track record, right, he led half of Twitter and Fleet Street up the garden path with Keir's beers, right? Do you remember all of that? 2 weeks of coverage, and it amounted to nothing. And now he's done it again with Angela Rayner's flat. Oh, I've got a really good feeling about this story. I've got a bit of a hunch that we're going to get a scoop out. Oh, well, if you've got a good feeling about it, Dan, then, oh, absolutely, yeah, follow it up. Make sure you give it 40 days of your time and billable expenses to the Daily Mail group if you've got a hunch. I mean, in any fair or just world, a journalist who did this, who pursued these two stories, and they amounted to absolutely nothing. They follow it, they amp it up to such epic proportions, and come away with fuck all. I mean, in any sane, normal, or just world, a journalist that pursued those two stories to that level of amplitude and then coming away with that, they would be politely let go, wouldn't they? Any journalist that did that. But no, I suppose, this country, this world that we are now inhabiting, I suppose we could expect to see a load of typically centred and sane responses about this. But what's the prediction, do we think? How do we think the right are going to respond to Angela Rayner being completely let off? There's no case to answer. They're not going to be pursuing it any longer. How do we think they're going to respond to this? What are your predictions? Mine are, at time of recording, as the news has just broken, mine are that the police have gone woke now. That'll be probably straight out the gate. The police are now judges, lawyers, lefty lawyers, the civil service, all of it is woke. And now the police are also woke. That'll be the first one. Maybe the Greater Manchester Police are in cahoots with Labour, something along those lines, because, Manchester is a big city. Labour operates a lot more successfully in cities and urban areas. And it has a Labour mayor, doesn't it? Manchester, maybe Manchester is in cahoots with Labour, something along those lines. Maybe it's the deep state, guys. Maybe Starmer and Rayner are so incompetent, ill-prepared, and sleepy. Oh my God, I don't know if you've heard that about Starmer. He's very sleepy. Maybe they're so incompetent and sleepy, they can't be trusted with power. But simultaneously, they're so bloody devious and clever that they've managed to orchestrate an entire police force and judicial conspiracy. Maybe that's what it is. They're this, but they're also that, somehow. Maybe, wait, actually, I've got it, guys. I've figured it out. Maybe the investigating officer in the Greater Manchester Police, maybe any other detective or investigating officer or constable or whatever it is, maybe any other guy would have found cause to prosecute Angela Rayner. But this one guy who was looking into it, he was 61. He was past it. He was just past it. It was beyond his capability. Okay, so politics is a bin fire. Everything's awful. We all know that, etc., etc. So let's do what we do sometimes on this show. Once we've explored UK politics, once we've established how insane everything has become and how hopeless it now is, let's do what we do and let's take a look at what is happening over in the United States, shall we? Because it's been a while since we've scanned across the pond and took stock of their chaos, their awfulness, their political insanity, and made ourselves feel better. Because the US's news, right? Here's the deal with America's news. The US's news is it's sort of like a cinema trailer for where the UK is headed, isn't it? Did you remember when anti-vaxxers were just in Florida? but now they're here. Do you remember when people only used to bang on about voter ID and voter fraud in Washington? But now they do here, just like America. Do you remember when obscene higher education, American college debt was just something that happened over there? But have you seen how much British degrees cost now? Whoa! And it really gets you thinking, dear listeners, dearer viewers. Really begs the question. All these things that come over from America, they used to just be in America. They slowly make their way over here. This obsession with voter fraud, obscene college debt, the anti-vax movement. You see all of this stuff. And it really begs the question, how come we never got meth? How come we never got meth, guys? Now, let's actually get into this, shall we? Because, a lot of you could be thinking, oh, he's going to go on about Trump now, because occasionally we do like to delve into American politics, the Trump-Biden race or the Trump trials, whichever one he's experiencing and enduring this week. But the other half of you are probably going to be thinking, well, okay, actually probably what he's going to do is he's going to go into some weird Americana story that he's found on the Mail Online or, CBS News or whatever. So something about a guy, an American guy in a checkered shirt who had one too many Coors Light and he did something stupid on a plane. Maybe he, got drunk and stripped naked or something like that. And you're wrong, guys. On this occasion, you are wrong. Because this one is Australian. Because this is a story that caught my eye earlier. Check this. This is on this is on Sky News. I guess it's Sky News Australia. It comes from originally, but it's on Sky News' weird offbeat news section. It says, man who ran through Virgin Australia plane naked and knocked over attendant arrested. as you might expect. So let's talk about this, shall we? Man who ran through Virgin Australia plane naked and knocked over a flight attendant has been arrested. It says, a man who allegedly ran naked down the aisle of a plane in the middle of a flight has been arrested. Australian officers said the man knocked over an attendant during his sprint on a flight from Perth to Melbourne. So that's the far west of Australia, right down to the southeast, right? From Perth to Melbourne, and forced the plane to turn around. Straight back to Perth. Right? It says police were waiting at Perth Airport when the flight circled back, and after being detained, he was transferred to hospital for assessment, where he remains. So, can we try and make sense of this for a second? What do we think this was? From what's written there, what do we think has actually happened here? What is the backstory? Who is this guy? How did he come to strip off naked and run for a sprint down an in-flight aircraft and knock into a flight attendant? What has happened here? Do we think it was for a TikTok? Because I feel it could have been done for online clout. This is basically where we're at now as a civilization, as a society. We all like to think when we read stories like this that it was some, unmedicated moron who lacks the cognitive ability to grasp the social mores of the Western world, or indeed the occasion. We read a story like this and we immediately run to, it must be a mental health thing. But this could have easily been a prank gone wrong. Also, it would not surprise me in the slightest if this was done for TikTok clout, for YouTube views. It just would not. Some people out there, some of you watching this might be like, oh, wow, that's a hell of a twist there, Aid. The plot thickens. I did not see that coming. But not me. I've known way too many desperate open mic comedians chasing online adulation. I've met way too many influencers by this point, hungry for views, that I would not rule it out for a second that that's what this is. This could easily have been a YouTube prank. It's a prank, bro! This could easily have been a YouTuber doing one of their god-awful, it's a social experiment. That's all it is. It's not a prank. Pranks are so 2009. Now it's social experiments. I don't know if you guys have, if you're really into YouTube or like YouTubers or whatever, but there was a big fad for that stuff for a while. You get these sort of fame-hungry, desperate YouTubers who upload like a 7-minute video once a week, and every week it would be something insufferable. Like, oh, it's a social experiment. Join us next week for more social experiments to see what happens when this white kid drives his Mercedes into Inglewood and Compton and starts calling African-American retail staff on minimum wage the N-word. My N-word. It's an experiment. We're seeing what comes of it. What could come of that? Like, could this, the guy running down the plane with no clothes on, could this be that? Is what I'm wondering. Just a group of insufferable Aussie TikTokers egging each other on the plane. And everyone's asleep. They're like, oi, Brett, everyone's asleep, bro. We should do it now. Drew, get your iPhone out. Drew, you film Brett. He's going to film you. Take your pants off, bro. Everyone's asleep. Nobody will care. It'll be a scream, bro. I mean, what does it say about us, right? That when a guy disrobes and tears down the aisle butt naked, we run to this idea that it's a mental health thing, don't we? It's got to be somebody having an episode, somebody that forgot to take their medication. Like it said in the piece, didn't it? It said he was transferred to a hospital for assessment afterwards. But that we also run to mental health when it's a white guy that shoots a lot of people, don't we? We run to mental health when it is either one of these things. And yet, when it's a black or a brown guy that goes shooting, then journo-politically, culturally, we're like, no, that's just how they are. It's cultural. That's why he did that. Muslims are ideologically violent. That is why that happened. It's built in. Or, or the black guy will be a terrorist, right? But basically, not mentally unwell. It's not a mental health issue. Anyway, we all know that stuff, right? It's happened a lot of times. White guy, mental problems. Brown guy, terrorist. But what if this guy runs down the aisle of the plane with dick and balls just swinging, and they take him off the plane and they send him into the mental ward? What if it was a black guy? What if it was a Muslim guy? What do we think the reaction would be then? You know? Like, if we're willing to box up anything that the white guy does as a mental health problem, but every time, like, a black or a brown guy does something that's, you know, like, then he's a terrorist or it's part of his cultural identity and how he was raised. And, like, what if this guy turns out to be of Middle Eastern heritage? Or like, well, is Fox News going to try and, like, characterize Muslims for this shit too? You know? You know, like, it's just what they're into, all right? It's who they are. You know, the Muslims, let me think about this. They're into mosques, building mosques and oppressing women. Uh-huh. And running down planes with their balls out. It's just who they are. Those three things, that's what they're about. And I tell you what, they refuse to integrate. In fact, you know what? It wouldn't even get that far, would it? If it was a brown dude on a plane, a guy that superficially looks like he could be Muslim, starts acting weird, a Muslim guy on a plane that's acting... It wouldn't even become a story about a naked guy running down the aisle. It would just be Muslim guy acts strange and is then restrained by 7 of the in-flight crew. Like, that would be tasered. Everyone's like, yeah, thank you for keeping us safe, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Guy on the floor's like, I was just trying to take my fucking jacket off. I mean, in a way, it's sort of exclusory, isn't it? You know, it's not very inclusive. It is a white man's privilege to be able to run down that plane with no clothes on. You know, that is something that I think only white men could get as far as being able to do that. And then to only end up in a comfortable hospital bed. It's like you could have representatives from every other race in the world and they would look at that story and be like, what the fuck? Like, how is he not in jail? How is he not shot? What the fuck? Like, how is this fair? This is completely unfair. No, it's perfectly fair. No, it's we've got a duty to look after people with mental health challenges. Right, but I put my hand up and complained about that guy, and you shot me. Right, but we've apologised for that many times now. You know, we've said sorry and we put a rainbow above our logo. Like, what more do you fucking want? You're gonna get journalists confused as well, like asking questions like, how come that guy's just gone to the hospital? Like, if this was any of our cousins or like people, if this was anybody else, they would have been shot or tasered or been called a terrorist or something. How come he's in it? Like, why are you not pressing charges? And then the investigating officer or like the representative from the police force, like, clear his throat. He sort of very slowly approached the podium, the press conference microphone. And the journalists are getting impatient, like, what? Why are you not pressing charges? And he'd be like, well, apparently he works for Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer, and the deep state phoned through and they said he's untouchable. I'm sorry. There's a line in this story, actually, that I quite like. Let me flip back to it. I don't think you can see it on the screenshot here, but there's a line in the story. It says, Australian officers said the man knocked over an attendant during his sprint on a flight from Perth to Melbourne and forced the plane to turn around, which I quite like that bit. Like, I like the idea that the plane takes off. You know, everyone's on the plane, everyone's relaxed, maybe having a little martini, whatever. Everything's going great. The plane takes off from Perth. And then the guy gets naked, right? And he goes for his little run. And then the pilot is from Melbourne. That's the idea that I've come up with in my head. I don't know if he is actually he's probably not even from Australia, right? But I like the idea that the guy is from Melbourne. And he's just had enough of these bumpkins from Perth. These uncivilized heathens. And he catches wind of this naked guy running up and down. He's like, oh no, you are not bringing this nonsense to Melbourne. All right, that shit belongs in Perth. Turns the plane around. Anyway, what else have we got tonight? What else can we talk about? That story tickled my fancy, so it did. Anyway, here is a story, guys. Here is a story that sits sort of outside of the parameters of what we would normally discuss on this podcast. Because normally it's a bit of Tory bashing, right? Normally it's a bit of Americana. We might take the piss out of Trump. We call out the Republican Party as the cynical, vapid, careerist, Borg-like cult in adulation with Trump that it is. Having abandoned all of their principles, law and order, anti-corruption, separation of church and state, family values. It's all gone. All of it is toast now. All there is now is Donald. And thou shalt not take his name in vain in the Republican Party circles these days. We very rarely, though, venture into the worlds of celebrity and trash, do we? But this story was interesting, I thought. It is a piece in The Sun. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. And it says, no can do. Inside the downfall of Cannes Film Festival as A-list actors are left furious by influx of reality stars. Which I think is worth looking at. Because it really is a sort of, a sign of the times, isn't it? Like, Cannes used to be a veritable, trade show for Hollywood, didn't it? People would make a movie. They would take it to Cannes. They would, get talking. They would schmooze. They would try to shop it to a studio who would buy it, and then they would put it out properly, and promote it. And of course, over the years, it's become more of a draw to, offshoot entertainment industries. You've seen rappers there. You've seen models who all wanted to be seen at Cannes Film Festival. Maybe they wanted to get talking to a Weinstein. Maybe they wanted to get cast in a movie. Maybe they just wanted to hang out in yachts getting smashed for a week. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, now as time has gone on and entertainment has changed, you have obviously got YouTubers who are pulling in millions of views. And that is where teenagers spend their time now, isn't it? TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, where historically they would have gone to, a youth club or the mall or whatever. But now they follow YouTubers and TikTokers and Kardashians, right? But there's a snootiness to those stars, isn't there? Because the legacy media, the entertainment people, the singers, the actors, the producers, they all look at the YouTubers and the TikTokers and they're a bit like, well, what do they do? What is their actual talent, right? I suppose the most immediate example of this is, Beyonce and Jay-Z, right? They famously or infamously did not want to hang out much with Kanye and Kim Kardashian. Because Jay-Z is a rapper, right? And Kanye's a rapper. So that's fine. But Beyonce is a global superstar, icon, singer. Whereas Kim Kardashian got famous because her dad defended O.J. Simpson, and then because she fucked a third-tier R&B guy on Night Vision. That was her talent. And don't get me wrong, it looked like she did it well. But Beyonce, Kim Kardashian. So you can see how, I don't know, if you were there in that first tier of the Cannes Festival alumni, you know, which may or may not include the Quentin Tarantinos, you know, the Emma Thompsons, the Ralph Fiennes, even like an aspiring Hollywood type, you know, at a particular time, like an Anna Frail, right? You could see how having a bunch of reality stars rock up might sort of, you know, piss you off a bit. You know? Dilute the prestige somewhat. Or, you know, more realistically, it might just make you want to hang out somewhere else, perhaps. You know, like imagine you are an actress that's finally got to these prestigious, well-connected parties in Cannes. Wouldn't you be a little bit like, do you know how hard I had to work to get here? I auditioned for everything I could in Manchester. You know, in Manchester Theatre of the Arts, or RADA, or whatever. Red Roof's Theatre School, one of the, like, Sylvia Young, all of these places. Do you know how hard I had to work just to get into that school? And then to do all of the auditions in my spare time while I waited tables and did bar work. All the time just thinking of my dream. One day I'll get to Cannes. Do you know how hard that was? Well, I moved to London and I didn't work for 6 months. I just ate into my savings. I slept on my friend's floor. I got woken up every night by either, you know, downstairs mice or upstairs murders. I had to look the other way on my first proper acting job when my friend got sexually assaulted in the green room on the set of Elizabeth General. Because nobody wants to have troublemaker on their CV, do they? In between EastEnders Extra and fucking a Persil advert. Do you know how that feels? How hard I had to work. Do you know how that feels to be on the set of Elizabeth General, cast as a woman who has just been assaulted, reading out lines on camera describing how awful assault feels, while on set having to ignore someone else's assault because it might ruin my career? Do you know how hard I had to work to get here? And finally, I got cast in a Ridley Scott film, and I won my Supporting Actress Award. And I'm finally here, surrounded by gatekeepers and key players, only to see you just waltz in with your... I mean, what do you even do? And the woman she's talking to is like, I was on MILF Island. Oh, God. I know. Can you believe this? Can you believe, like, someone like me gets to come to something like this? And she'd be like, no, I cannot believe that. Anyway, it says, this news story, it says, Cannes Film Festival was once the Mediterranean jewel in Hollywood's crown, with elite A-list stars desperate to get an invite to the coveted red carpet premieres. But my insiders who headed over to the film festival told me it now resembles something you might find for sale on Temu. Cheap, tacky, and lacking any real substance. And then it also says Ekin Su and Molly May from Love Island have both been spotted there. And that sort of suggests that people are looking for Ekin Su and Molly May. I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate, but, you know, it is the Sun. And it says people are mad because they would rather that it went back to when it was less tacky. That seems to be the vibe of this, you know. Can we take it back to when it before it was this tacky, back when it was less tacky, when it was more classy? You know, like a few years ago, maybe. When the parties were better. The parties were so good a few years ago, Aid. They were more elite, more select, more elite, these parties were, when they were run by and for people like Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Diddy. They are literally Who used to run those parties? Like, this place has lost its edge, man. This place used to throw some good bashes in the good old days. Cannes used to be the place to be, Aid. It used to be so good. But now, I mean, they've got all of these reality stars here, but not one paedophile. I mean, where is the inclusivity in Hollywood these days? It says the parties are supposed to be about cinema and class. And then it goes on to say that the Campari event was chaos, not class. And it says, this is my favourite bit, Kevin Costner was in tears at all the influencers that were around. Which, you know, look, come on, Kevin. Pull yourself together. We've all been to bad parties. We have, okay? It's not the end of the world. We've all gone to things where we wish that they were still how they used to be. I feel that way every time I go into the pub, to be honest with you. You know, especially the pub. If I go into the pub that I used to go drinking in, like back in the day when I still had friends, and now it's just me sat there with my phone and my pint. Yes, more often than not, I am like, this place used to be way better. They've really let this place down. It used to be so much more fun. Because that is easier than me actually reflecting that all of my friends have moved on with their lives and matured out of that 23-year-old mentality. Gotta go to the pub. Gotta get shit-faced. They've all actually got lives going on. But I can't reflect on that, so instead I'm just sat there like, wow, this place has really gone downhill. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is this, guys. For those of us who do dabble in social media, for those of us who could be described somewhat clumsily as influencers, I think we just need to be a little bit circumspect about where we hang out, where we might be welcome. Because I'm all for modernising, I'm all for entertainment accepting that the mediums or channels through which they bring us their art and promote it have changed. I'm definitely up for that. But I also think there's a place for us to just, shrug and let them get on with their weird tuxedo yacht parties, Because, does Molly May really think she's getting cast in a Hollywood movie by being there? Does she? Really? Does Ekin Su think that it starts with Love Island and then there's a career trajectory that lands her outside the pages of Reveal magazine? I mean, really it's the Brits, isn't it? That's the real problem here. That's what we're talking about, isn't it? That's what has made Kevin cry. Is he thought he was going to be rubbing shoulders with, Clooney and sharing a martini with Tom Hanks and all that. And then he's rocked up to the boat party and it's a load of annoying Brits abroad. And I get it. I fully understand. Just a coven of cackling Love Island morons over here taking selfies and speaking broken Spanish to French waiters, asking for a full English. And poor Costner is just over here going like, has anybody got a bow and arrow? Just totally lost his patience when a TikToker ran through the aisle with no clothes on. I'd be upset too, Kev. I would be. And then you got fed up French waiters. They're like, I knew we were going to be hosting the Americans. I expected a few rough diamonds, but this... There's some American guy on that table who's just like, I know. I know, I'm so sorry. You know, and the French waiter turns around and points at some of the, two YouTubers and a TikToker, be like Gabby Hanna and Jake Paul doing shots, knocking tables. Why did you bring these people with you? And again, the American guy's like, I know, I apologize. And the French waiter's like, but you are American, right? Oui, yes? And the guy's like, that's right, but I'm sorry. And the French waiter's like, of all the things to bring with you, you couldn't bring the meth. Guys, that's it for this one. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you're checking it out on YouTube. If you haven't joined the Patreon or the YouTube community yet, there are links to both in the description below. I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the next in-person meetup is Saturday the 6th of July. So if you're headed to London to celebrate, or possibly commiserate the election results if and when Labour get in, maybe keep that Saturday free. Obviously, election night is Thursday. Results will be, finalised, I think, Friday. And then Saturday, Patreon meetup with me. Finally, if you're not in a position to join the Patreon, because, in this economy, who's looking to add to their subscriptions right now? Let's be real. But if you did want to leave a little tip in the tip cup, like if you're enjoying the pod, if you like the paper reviews, you can click the little 3 dots on YouTube and you can pop a little tip in, because, all of that just goes into a little kitty, and then it allows me to buy a new camera, to sort out my mic, etc, etc. So every little helps. But that's it for now. I'll be back Friday night with the live show. Until then, keep it booge, keep it binfluencer, and we are out this motherfucker.